Ladies and gentlemen, we are tonight's entertainment. I'm finally doing this list, my top five Stephen King books. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. If you're new to my channel, I'm just a huge Stephen King fan. I've been reading him for many years now, and this was a hard list to make simply because the man has wrote so many things. Old Stevie, he keeps writing, uh, and it's hard because I don't think that there's a book of his I don't enjoy, and so it was hard to make a top five list. But these are the ones that are just amazing, and they're just perfect in every way. And so let's get to it. I'm going to start off with two honorable mentions, which I will say right now. The first honorable mention is Joyland. Now, this is kind of a shocker to some people because a lot of people don't put this in their top five or top 10. But I loved this book. This was a 280-page book. I read it in one sitting. I read it one day. I sat down and I read this book because it was that good. I couldn't stop reading it. Um, it's a sad story. It's kind of a depressing novel, but it's very, very good. I'm not ashamed to admit there was some tears shed toward the end of this book because it is a very depressing novel, but it's good. I love this book, and so I had to put it somewhere on the list, but it was not in the top five. But it's quite good. This was hard because yes, I know the Dark Tower series. It's a series of books. I couldn't pick just one Dark Tower novel. And I wanted to include it somehow. I didn't want to put it in the top five because this is my top five Stephen King books after all. But the entire Dark Tower series is in my honorable mention because this is just the greatest series of books you'll ever read. I don't care about Harry Potter. I don't care about you need to read the Dark Tower because it's quite an amazing story. And yes, I know I was going to put it in the top five, but I know that it would kind of not make sense in the top five because this is my top five books, but it's an amazing series, and I think that if you're a Stephen King fan, you need to read the Dark Tower series. Heck, you just need to read the Dark Tower series. It doesn't matter if you're a Stephen King fan or not. Read the Dark Tower series. Number five, Pet Sematary. One of the if this list was top five scary books, this would be a lot higher. This is one of the most effed up, freaky, terrifying books I've ever read in my life. It's quite horrifying, and the things that happen in this book are they're insane. And this book, you know, this is a good place to start. I think if you're new to Stephen King. But there's another book on this list that I think is the best place to start, so hold on. But Pet Sematary is just amazing. Dr. Creed, what the man goes through is just insane. This list is going to be, I'm not going to try to spoil many things, so I'm not going to really say much about these books, but just know that Pet Sematary is freaky. They're supposed to do a new adaptation of the movie in 2019, which I can't wait for. The old movie that they did back in the 80s, 90s, 80s, can't remember, was freaking great. You need to watch it. It's horrifying, but the book is just amazing. So that's number five. Coming in at number four. Now this may be a shocker to some people, but if you've ever read Revival, you know that this book is insane. This book takes place over 55 years. I'm going to give a little info about it. Pastor Jacobs comes into town. He meets a kid named Jamie Morton. Those are the two main characters, and those are the ones you're going to be, with throughout the next 55 years. Well, Jamie Morton more so than Jacobs, but events happen, and there's a reason that Pastor Jacobs loses his faith, and he gives a sermon in church that people don't agree with or don't, and he goes out of town and he moves away, but he can control electricity. If you start this book, you got to finish it, because the main reason, the book's amazing, but the main reason this book is on the list is because of the ending. And I'm not going to talk about the ending, but if you read this ending, you will have nightmares. I'm just going to say I did. I had nightmares when I finished this book. This book will freak you out when you finish it. It won't freak you out when you're reading it. It's just a great book when you're reading it. But when you finish this book, you are just horrified. You're just terrified at what happens. So that's all I'm gonna say. Read Revival. It's amazing. Okay, so these top three are all masterpieces, but coming in at number 3 is The Stand. Need I say more? The book is a masterpiece. The book is just amazing. Uh, it's about a plague that wipes out 99% of the population, and it's just one of those worlds that you just get lost in, and the characters in this book are just amazing, and putting them in this situation. There is important characters that pop up in this book that are in other Stephen King books. If you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. One of those is Randall Flagg, who is he's the Man in Black in the Dark Tower series, and so that's one of the things I love about this book is it's connects to the Dark Tower quite nicely. Just what happens in this book is just insane, and it's just a it's just great. It's a battle against good and evil, and it's an amazing book, one that you should read. I don't know if you should start with it. The next book on this list, number 2, is the one you should start with, and so yeah. Coming in at number 2 is Stephen King's second novel, Salem's Lot. I was so shocked by how good this book was. When I first read it, I was just blown away. I couldn't believe that the version I have is like 600 to 700 pages. I read the book in 2 days. That's how good the book was. I was reading 200 to 300 pages a day. I couldn't put the thing down. And the only other book that's really done that to me was it. Even with The Stand, I was kind of the most I would read with The Stand would be around 100, maybe 150, But with Salem's Lot, I just couldn't put the thing down. The characters in this book are amazing. It's Stephen King's vampire story. It's scary. It's amazing. They did a great film adaptation, or it was actually made for it was a miniseries actually, I think, or something. But it's scary. It's great. The characters, the town, it's about this house, the Marston house that's haunted. It's an amazing, terrifying book. The characters in this book are just so deep, and they're just amazing, and it's just amazing. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. Yeah. And as I said, if you're new to Stephen King, start with Salem's Lot. That's my recommendation. Start with this book. And coming in at number 1, if you know me, this is no surprise. If I've talked to you ever about books, this is no surprise. Heck, if you've watched some of my videos, that's probably no surprise. I think I've mentioned it in a couple of them. The greatest horror novel ever written. The greatest novel ever written. Stephen King's it. I can't explain to begin what this book means to me. This is a book that read the book. Read Stephen King's it, man. The characters in this book. I will never forget the Losers Club. They are the most relatable set of characters Stephen King. Heck, they're the most relatable set of characters that any author has ever written. The Losers Club are just so relatable. They're just so amazing. That's why, and I am not ashamed to admit it all, every time I finish this book, I'm just in tears. Like I'm just so emotional, because it's one of those books that you close and you're like, I don't want this to end. I want to hang out with the Losers Club, because they're just such a cool set of characters. And so that's why when I'm reading it, and when you feel like you're with them, like you feel like you're a part of the group. And Pennywise, my God, the 2017 movie was great, but it's nowhere close to the book. Pennywise in the novel is just horrifying. The things that go on in this book, if you've watched the movie, a couple spoilers. I mean, the leper scene with Eddie is one of my favorite scenes. how Ben encounters Pennywise is way better in the book, I feel, than the movie. Um, just so amazing. This book, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's a 50 out of 10. It's a 100 out of 10. This book, every time I start rereading or reading a Stephen King book, like recently I started rereading The Stand, and I just want to go reread it. It's just one of those books that I always go back to. Some books I'll read, I might reread them once, and I'm done with it, but I just can't stop rereading the book. I've reread it multiple times, 3 to 4 times, and I'm gonna probably start another one here soon. So that's my top 5 list. Stephen King's It at number 1. It's the greatest horror novel ever written, and I don't think you should start with this one just because there's mythology and stuff in this that you're probably not going to understand unless you either do your research on Stephen King or something like that. But start with Salem's Lot. But once you learn Stephen King, go read it because it's a masterpiece. And that's my top 5 list. I'll see you later. Subscribe.